The Avatar series spanned 16 years since the original groundbreaking release in 3D in 2009 that shattered box office records, becoming the #1 grossing movie of all time. The sequel, The Way of Water, was also hugely successful, smashing box office records to become the third highest grossing movie of all time. And the latest film, Avatar: Fire and Ash, is well on its way to surpassing $1 billion. The Avatar series is the most financially successful series of all time, relative to the average number of films released. Yet despite this extraordinary success, something is rotten and foundationally weak and flawed at the heart of the Avatar film franchise. It is in this video that I investigate this fundamental weakness. So join me and please feel free to subscribe as I investigate this fundamental flaw of the Avatar film franchise. The Critical Drinker recently stated that no one cares about the Avatar series.
The Avatar franchise is weirdly culturally inert. And when I think back to the previous two films, it was pretty much the same story. Everyone went to see them, but nobody had anything to say about them afterwards. In fact, most people couldn't even seem to remember them beyond a vague declaration that the visuals were amazing. Somehow, despite their massive financial success, they've managed to make absolutely no impact on popular culture.
To paraphrase what he said, it looks great, but you kind of just forget about it afterwards. Nobody talks about these movies. What was the drinker getting at here? The drinker doesn't explain in much detail what the fundamental flaw of this series is. However, I think I know what the drinker was getting at. The reason no one talks about the Avatar movies, the reason why the Avatar series hasn't developed a massive fandom and cult following like films such as Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter, to name a few. The reason, to put it bluntly, is actually rather simple, and the reason is character. Yes, Avatar has astounding visual effects, jaw-dropping and incredibly photorealistic animations, and a phenomenally beautiful and distinctive world. However, what Avatar: Fire and Ash and the rest of the Avatar films lack to varying degrees is strong, distinct characters that you care about. And the reason you don't care about these characters is quite simple: visual design. It's hard to care about characters and root for characters that don't have a unique visual design. Conversely, in the Avatar series, pretty much all the characters, with very few exceptions, look almost the same. Take pretty much any film franchise you can think of: Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Harry Potter, even James Cameron's Aliens. And you'll see that, without exception, each character stands out and is unique, and the reason they stand out and feel distinct is that each character has a unique look and design that you feel you can identify it without even thinking about it. You may not even remember some of those characters' names, but regardless, you never forget the character, because those characters are well developed and well designed characters. Despite James Cameron's thousands and millions of hours spent developing the technology to create these incredibly photorealistic and detailed animations, James Cameron has neglected the most basic aspect of character creation that harkens back to the earliest days of animation, back in 1937 with Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The most startling example of this fundamental flaw in the Avatar series is that the primary protagonist, Jake Sully, and the primary antagonist, Miles Quaritch, look almost exactly the same. They look more similar than any two characters in this franchise, where every character already looks strikingly similar. I mean, compare Darth Vader to Luke Skywalker, Woody to Sid, Frodo to Smeagol, Anton Chigurh to Llewellyn Moss, Harry Potter to Voldemort, Spider-Man to the Green Goblin, Batman to the Joker. The list could go on forever. Basically, the fundamental rule of character design is that the more dissimilar two characters are, the more distinctive they should look from each other. Yet here in this $400 million plus movie that animators and artists have spent millions of hours working on, the main protagonist and antagonist, Jake Sully and Miles Quaritch, look almost identical. It's one of the most bizarre and strange design decisions of any movie I can think of. Now, you might say the reason no one cares about these characters is because they are animations. They are essentially cartoons, and it's hard to make animated characters feel real and look distinct if they are cartoons. And if you were to make that assumption, you would be making an erroneous assumption. Yes, the Avatar, the Navi, are all one species and are all blue. Yet the Simpsons too are all one species and are all essentially bright yellow. Yet despite the fact that all the members of The Simpsons are all essentially yellow, you would not mistake a single member of The Simpsons with another. And the reason is because of that golden rule of character design. Each member of The Simpsons has a unique visual design, one that is so distinct you could easily identify each member of The Simpsons just based on the outline of the shape of their scalp alone, without even thinking about it. The same goes for almost all of the film world's most famous characters. You could argue that, like Avatar, many of the world's greatest film franchises with huge cult followings don't have particularly great or unique stories. But what you definitely can't argue is that those film franchises don't have great characters. Another fundamental flaw of the Avatar series has to do with character, and not just with the character design, but the character portrayal. You might say acting doesn't matter as much when characters are visual animations. But again, if you were to make that assumption, you would be seriously incorrect. There are countless examples where animated characters are made infamous by their voice almost as much as they are by their unique visual design. See Toy Story, Woody and Buzz, Robin Williams the genie from Aladdin, James L. Jones as Mufasa from The Lion King, Nancy Cartwright's Bart from The Simpsons, Eddie Murphy's Donkey from Shrek, and Andy Serkis's Smeagol from The Lord of the Rings, just to name a few. For the most part, all the characters in Avatar not only sound similar, but they also sound very generic. The worst and most critical example of this is Jake Sully, played by Sam Worthington. Sam Worthington was not a very famous or experienced actor at the time when the original Avatar released, and maybe if an experienced and infamous actor like Tom Hanks was hired to play Jake Sully, then maybe audiences could at least connect with Jake Sully on an emotional level, and audiences would feel more invested in him as a character and resultantly more invested in the Avatar story. As I said, all film franchises and stories roughly follow the same story arc, the hero's journey. What sets great franchises out and transforms some into cult franchises with huge cult followings and huge fandom are the characters. I'm talking about Han Solo, The Lord of the Rings Frodo, the Batman's Joker, Star Trek's Captain Kirk, the Avengers Iron Man, Die Hard's John McClane, and the Terminator's T-1000. Despite the huge budget and the countless years spent creating the Avatar film series and the incredible visual design of this incredibly beautiful looking visual world, which looks absolutely stunning, breathtaking, and absolutely is unmissable in IMAX, James Cameron let down this film franchise in one of the most basic and fundamentally critical areas, that being character, and he fumbled big time in this department. It's a very strange and terrible decision by James Cameron, but to give James Cameron some credit, Cameron seemingly made a bet that he could draw in a massive audience based on the incredible visual effects and cinematic spectacle of these movies alone, and based on the box office receipts of this franchise so far, his bet has certainly paid off. It's just a shame that this film franchise could have meant so much more and been so much better if Cameron paid more attention to one of the most basic and fundamental aspects of character design that was perfected by Matt Groening in 1989 with The Simpsons, and Walt Disney 50 years before him in the 1920s with Mickey Mouse, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs shortly thereafter. To give James Cameron some more credit, there is at least one new character in Avatar Fire and Ash that stands out significantly and has quite a beautiful visual design, that being Varang, played by Una Chaplin. Varang's a unique design that seems to play off Native American culture, with her red feathers and red face paint, makes her stand out as a character significantly. Her character doesn't have a lot of dialogue and rarely speaks in the film, but her unique visual design does a lot more than words alone ever could do for a character. She is the one exception for Avatar Fire and Ash in terms of being a brilliant major character with a unique look. However, one major character with a unique look isn't enough to save a film that is plagued by characters which are blue, 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 Mr. Blue, Little Blue, 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 and another blue one. Yeah, I get these characters don't look exactly the same, but human beings just aren't very good at differentiating non-human faces apart, and that would include bright blue faces. Character designs are incredibly photorealistic, but human beings just can't connect with these characters. And if you agree with me, let me know in the comments below. Should there be a different type of Navi in Avatar 4 which is inevitably being greenlit now that Avatar Fire and Ash has crossed $1 billion? Should there be different species that look vastly different from the Navi? Of course, these characters are avatars, so Jake Sully and Miles Quaritch could seemingly go back to a different avatar at any time. Anyhow, and of course there is Spider, played by Jack Champion. Spider is a little jungle boy type character. He plays quite a significant role in Avatar Way of Water, but he doesn't have much of a role in Avatar Fire and Ash. But again, one minor character such as Jake Champion Spider isn't enough to save the underlying flaw of this series, which is character design. Jake Champion turns out not to be a very good actor anyway, and his role isn't of particular importance, which is why, as I said, that Jake Sully and Miles Quaritch's characters, being the key protagonist and key antagonist of the Avatar series, should, at the very least, be the two main characters that look the most visually distinct. Now, to give James Cameron some credit, towards the end of the film Avatar Fire and Ash, James Cameron does paint a lot of the main characters' faces different colors, in war paint and war garb, so to speak. However, this again is not enough to save the underlying flaw of this series, which is again characters that look very much like each other and just do not stand out particularly visually distinct. It also doesn't help that the names of these characters are very hard to remember for English-speaking audiences. Apart from Jake Sully, there's Nitiri, Kiri, Konawari, Palik, Loak, Tuk, Nitium. I mean, these characters' names just are not very memorable. It's not like C-3PO and Han Solo and Frodo and Gandalf and Sam, for example. These character names are just totally forgettable for English-speaking audiences. Anyhow, if you agree that my assessment of why the Avatar film series is fundamentally flawed, then please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you want to keep up with my other work here on this channel. Anyhow, thank you for joining me, and see ya. I hope to see you soon.